Picture this: a golden palace shimmering in the heart of ancient Rome, where marble walls glow under torchlight, and the air is heavy with incense, whispers, and ambition. It's 65 AD. The Roman Empire stands unmatched, stretching from the misty hills of Britain to the burning plains of the Euphrates. Yet behind the grandeur, beneath the polished stone and imperial banners, a nightmare is taking root. In one of the empire's most opulent halls, a trembling boy barely out of adolescence stands before Emperor Nero, a ruler whose name history still speaks with a shudder. This is not a tale of military conquest or political maneuvering. It's the story of Sporus, a boy whose beauty became his doom, whose identity was stolen, and whose life was rewritten to satisfy the grotesque fantasies of a man who believed himself above all law and morality. This is a descent into the heart of unchecked power, a story where love becomes possession, where grief festers into cruelty, and where the human soul is twisted to fit the shape of imperial madness. And it all begins with one question: what happens when an emperor decides that another person's body, mind, and identity belong to him alone? Welcome to Medieval Uncovered, where we peel back the myths and shine a light on the brutal truths that shaped our world. To understand Sporus's story, we need to step into the world of 65 AD Rome, a city of contradictions. Rome was the center of the world, a sprawling empire with aqueducts that defied gravity, roads that stretched thousands of miles, and a culture that gave us law, literature, and engineering marvels. But it was also a place of brutal inequality, where emperors held godlike power, and human lives could be discarded on a whim. Nero, the emperor at the heart of this story, was a walking paradox. He was an artist who loved poetry and theatre, but also a ruler whose cruelty knew no bounds. By 65 AD, Nero was in his late 20s, and his reign was spiralling into chaos. The Great Fire of 64 AD had left Rome in ashes, and whispers swirled that Nero himself started it to clear space for his dream palace, the Domus Aurea. Let's pause for a moment. Imagine being a Roman citizen in this era. You're walking through the Forum and you hear rumours about the emperor singing on stage while your city burned. How would you feel? Betrayed? Terrified? That's the atmosphere Sporus lived in. A world where the man at the top could do anything, and no one was safe. As a historian, I find Nero fascinating because he shows us what happens when power is unchecked. He wasn't just a ruler, he was a performer, a narcissist who saw the world as his stage. And Sporus, he was about to become the unwilling star of Nero's most twisted production. Sporus was a freedman, meaning he'd been a slave but was granted freedom. In Rome, freedmen often worked in the imperial household, serving the elite. Sporus was young, probably in his late teens, and ancient sources like Suetonius describe him as strikingly beautiful, delicate, graceful, almost otherworldly. But in Nero's court, beauty wasn't a gift, it was a liability. To me, this is where the story starts to hit home. Sporus didn't choose to stand out. He was just living his life, navigating a world where survival meant staying invisible. Yet his appearance made him a target. It's a reminder that even today, people can be judged or exploited for things they can't control, whether it's their looks, their identity, or their circumstances. The turning point for Sporus came with a tragedy, the death of Poppaea Sabina, Nero's second wife. Poppaea was a powerful figure, beautiful and ambitious, and Nero was obsessed with her. In 65 AD, she died under murky circumstances. Some ancient historians claim Nero kicked her during an argument while she was pregnant, causing her death. Others suggest she died from childbirth complications. We'll never know the full truth, But what we do know is that Nero was shattered. His grief wasn't just sorrow, it was a dangerous, all-consuming fixation. He ordered lavish funerals, had Poppeia's body embalmed, and even declared her a goddess. But that wasn't enough. Here's where things take a chilling turn. Nero noticed Sporus, and something clicked in his fractured mind. The young freedman bore a resemblance to Poppaea, maybe in his eyes, his smile, or the way he carried himself. To Nero, this wasn't just a coincidence. It was a chance to bring Poppaea back. This moment fascinates me because it shows how grief can twist into something monstrous. Nero wasn't content to mourn. He wanted to rewrite reality. As a modern observer, I see parallels here with how people sometimes cling to the past, refusing to let go of a lost love or a broken dream. But Nero had the power to take that obsession to a horrifying extreme. Nero's plan was unthinkable. He ordered Sporus to be castrated, altering his body to make him a closer match for Poppaea. This wasn't just physical mutilation. It was an attempt to erase Sporus's identity as a man, turning him into a living vessel for Nero's fantasy. The procedure would have been agonizing, performed by imperial physicians in the sterile luxury of the palace. Imagine the betrayal Sporus must have felt, once a freedman with some hope of a future, now reduced to an object. As someone who studies history, I'm struck by how this act reflects the Roman view of power. To Nero, Sporus wasn't a person. He was property, a canvas for the emperor's desires. It's a stark reminder of how dehumanization has always been a tool of control, whether in ancient Rome or in modern systems of oppression. After the castration, Nero took his obsession to another level. He decided to marry Sporus. This wasn't a private affair, it was a public spectacle, staged with all the pomp of a royal wedding. Sporus was given the name Sabina, dressed in Poppeia's jewellery and fine women's clothing, and paraded as Nero's new empress. The ceremony was a grotesque parody of Roman marriage, with Nero playing the devoted groom and Sporus forced to act the blushing bride. Ancient sources describe the event as both lavish and horrifying, with Roman elites forced to smile and offer gifts while hiding their disgust. Let's unpack this. In Roman society, marriage was sacred, a contract that upheld social order. Nero's actions weren't just cruel, they were a deliberate middle finger to every value Rome held dear. To me, this is Nero at his most performative. He wasn't just grieving, he was putting on a show, using Sporus as a prop to shock and dominate. I can't help but draw a comparison to modern figures who use spectacle to distract from their failures. Think of politicians or celebrities who stage outrageous stunts to stay in the spotlight. Nero was the ultimate showman, but his audience was a young man whose life was being destroyed. For Sporus, this was the beginning of a living nightmare. He had to live as Sabina, attending public events, sitting by Nero's side at the theatre, and playing the role of empress in every detail. The psychological toll must have been unimaginable. He wasn't just pretending, he was forced to embody someone else, to suppress his own identity under layers of silk and lies. As a commentator, I see this as a profound example of identity theft, not in the modern financial sense, but in the deepest human sense. Sporus was stripped of who he was, forced to perform a role that erased his past, his gender, and his autonomy. To make Sporus's story more relatable, let's look at a few examples, both historical and modern, that echo his experience of losing identity to power. First, consider the story of Saatchi Baartman, a Khoikhoi woman from South Africa, in the early 19th century. Saatchi was taken to Europe and exhibited as a curiosity, her body objectified for profit. Like Sporus, she was stripped of agency, forced to perform a role that dehumanized her. Her story, like Sporus's, shows how beauty or difference can become a cage when power is involved. Now, let's bring it closer to today. Think about modern cases of exploitation in industries like entertainment or fashion. I'm reminded of stories from the Me Too movement, where young actors or models were pressured to conform to someone else's vision. Whether it's changing their appearance, suppressing their identity, or enduring abuse to keep a role. While these cases differ in scale from Sporus's, the core issue is the same: powerful people using their influence to control and reshape others. I've spoken to friends in creative industries who've faced moments where they had to play a part to survive, whether it's hiding their true personality or compromising their values. It's not castration, but it's still a loss of self. Another example hits closer to home: social media. Today we're all under pressure to curate an identity that fits what others expect. Influencers, for instance, often feel forced to project a perfect image, even if it means hiding their true struggles. It's not the same as Sporus's ordeal, but it's a modern echo of living a lie to please an audience. As I reflect on this, I'm struck by how universal Sporus's story is. His experience of being reshaped to fit someone else's narrative resonates across centuries, reminding us how fragile our sense of self can be when power is at play. Back in Rome, Sporus's life as Nero's empress was a daily performance. He was paraded through the city, dressed in imperial regalia, and expected to act like Poppaea at every turn. Nero called him Sabina, spoke to him as if he were his lost wife, and showered him with gifts: jewelry, silk, even a golden litter to carry him through Rome's streets. But these weren't acts of love, they were chains. Nero's affection was possessive, swinging between tenderness and rage. If Sporus failed to play his role perfectly, he faced punishment. Ancient sources mention Nero's trips to Greece, where Sporus was displayed to foreign leaders as the empress, forced to maintain the charade in alien lands. This part of the story is gut-wrenching because it shows the depth of Sporus's isolation. He was surrounded by people, courtiers, servants, senators, but no one could help him. Everyone was complicit, either out of fear or ambition. As a historian, I see this as a microcosm of toxic systems. Think of workplaces or institutions where everyone knows something's wrong, but no one speaks up. Sporus's silence wasn't just enforced by Nero, it was upheld by a society that valued power over humanity. To me, this raises a question: how often do we stay silent when we see someone being crushed by a system? It's a challenge to look at our own lives and ask where we've been complicit. By 68 AD, Nero's reign was crumbling. His obsession with spectacle, whether it was Sporus or his own theatrical performances, had alienated Rome's elite. The Praetorian Guard, the Senate, and provincial governors turned against him. Nero fled Rome, taking Sporus with him. Even as his empire collapsed, Nero clung to his fantasy, dressing Sporus as an empress while plotting a dramatic escape. But there was no escape. In June 68 AD, Nero took his own life, reportedly with help from a loyal aide. You'd think this would free Sporus, but it didn't. He became a prize in the chaos of the Year of the Four Emperors, passed from one ruler to the next like a trophy. First, Galba claimed him, keeping him in luxurious captivity. Then Otho, who briefly ruled, treated him with some kindness. But under Vitellius, things took a darker turn. Vitellius planned to force Sporus into the arena to reenact a mythological rape scene for public entertainment, a final, degrading spectacle. This was too much. Sporus, who had endured years of trauma, chose to end his life, rather than face this humiliation. As I reflect on this, I'm struck by Sporus's final act. Suicide is a heavy topic, and I want to approach it with care. To me, Sporus's choice wasn't just despair, it was defiance. After years of having every choice stripped away, he reclaimed his agency in the only way he could. It's a tragic reminder that sometimes the greatest act of resistance is refusing to let others define you. So what can we learn from Sporus? His story is more than a historical footnote. It's a mirror reflecting the dangers of unchecked power and the resilience of the human spirit. How do you see his story playing out in today's world? Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more deep dives into history's hidden stories. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep standing up for what's right. See you in the next video.